What's up, guys? Before we jump into today's episode, I have a very exciting announcement. I have teamed up with Newt Industries, the team behind Risk System, to give away a free physical PlayStation 4 or Nintendo Switch copy of the game. To enter, all you have to do is join the Main Quest Discord and drop a message about what your favorite shoot-'em-ups are in the Risk System giveaway channel. That's it. And you want a bonus entry? Make sure to follow Newt Industries on social media and post a screenshot for proof in the same channel. Bam. 2 entries, 1 game. This giveaway is open until Monday, July 14th, and I will announce a winner in the Discord and on social media as well. This contest, unfortunately, is only open to US residents. The disc and the cart are region locked. We cannot guarantee it will work in other countries. Again, that is the Main Quest Discord. Risk System. It's great, and it's up for grabs. Good luck. Welcome back to another side quest episode on the Main Quest podcast. As always, I am your host, Keith. And thank you for checking out the show. And today's episode kicks off a special series that I'm going to call Quest Givers. And this is where I sit down and chat with folks who are involved with and or around the games that we love to play. Today, I got the opportunity to talk with Chris Anderson from Newt Industries. We got to dive into what it's like working in the indie scene, the current landscape of what the industry looks like. Chris's creative process, and even some of your community questions. And so if this is something you wanted to participate in, you have to go check out the show notes and jump in the Discord. There are 2 channels dedicated just for stuff like this. It is a laid back, insightful conversation, and hopefully this is something you guys will enjoy. So with that, let's meet today's quest giver. As you guys heard up top, my guest today is Chris Anderson, game developer and programmer over at Newt Industries, the team behind Garbinge, Risk System, and the upcoming Bangle Maggie. We've got a lot to cover. We got a lot to go over, and I don't think we're going to hit on every single thing that I've got here. So let's just dive right in. Chris, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking your time being here.
Super happy to be here. Love to talk about this stuff.
So, where did it all start? Where did the inspiration come from to, obviously you have a partner as well. You know, where did the inspiration come? Where did you guys find each other and decide you want to start making video games?
So for me, I was, some of my formative memories are sticking that golden cartridge into my NES and hearing that first vibrato of the opening notes to The Legend of Zelda. I mean, it's just seared into my memory where I was in, what room I was in, the sun coming through the windows. That's how, like, my eyes opened on the idea of video games with just earth-shattering impact. All I wanted to do was play video games. Yeah, maybe I dreamed that somebody could teach me how to make one someday, but it seemed like such an impossible idea that it never even really crossed my mind for a long time. We got our first PC when I was 8 or 9 or 10, a Tandy 1000 from Radio Shack. That I started to play around with just to play old video games, but then I learned that I could make it do what I wanted by typing into the command line. And then I learned that you could make it do what you want by opening up a text file and writing code. And never really looked back from there. Put 2 and 2 together at that point. Maybe I could make video games. Wouldn't that be awesome? Decades go by, learn how to program for real, realize tough to get into that industry. And if you do get into it, especially as of the time I was getting my degree, so like 2004, the crunch was mega real then. Most game developers were working in the equivalent of coal mines. And the indie game scene really hadn't super taken off yet. It was starting to really, I think, at that point. But
Yeah.
So always wanted to make games, never thought I would. Didn't have any artistic talent, didn't know how to make graphics or music. One day, my daughter comes home from a park having met a new friend. We agree to meet with her parents just to get to know each other because our kids are friends. We meet up and we start to talking about just what we like to do. And I say, oh, I'd love to be a video game developer, but I just don't know how to do any of the art stuff. And he says, oh man, that's funny. I want to be a video game developer, but I don't know how to do any of the programming. And it was definitely like you got your peanut butter and my chocolate kind of a moment.
Yeah.
It just was exactly perfect. We toyed around with a lot of ideas over the years for like a couple years. And then finally just decided, hey, let's do it. And that's when we got together and started making Garbinge, a game that we're still very, very proud of. We learned a lot about mobile games at that point. And just the nightmare that is like the App Store. But, we had so much fun doing it that we just kept doing it. So here we are.
Let me rewind a little bit, or maybe this actually pertains to where you just left off. One of the community members, Mast Keaton, asked, Newt Industries is a good name. How did you decide the name for your company? And that was something I've always wondered myself as well.
So there is a story there, for sure. The first half of the story is, in my youth, I used to hang around with these guys called Hades Pro Heavy Industries. They ran the anime booths at Gen Con. At that time, I just thought it was hilarious to add like an industrial suffix to something that is so completely non-industrial. So that was where that half of it comes from. It's just, I think that's funny. And then the other half was, as we were first talking, me and Chris, about what we wanted to do, what kind of games we wanted to make, what games we both liked. And then that always leads into what movies you like, what music you like, because all of that actually is part of the creative input that becomes whatever you end up creating. One of the things we always landed on was Aliens. We love that movie, both of us, deeply. Every part of it. We just love that movie. And we really identified with the character Newt as a protagonist in a video game. We like the idea of the hero being not who you expect, or someone demonstrating a skill set of survival and ability in a setting that doesn't fit who they are, who you would perceive them to be. The little girl, she's lived here for 9 months. Why don't you put the girl in charge? We always thought that character was a cool character. So we named it Newt after her, Newt Industries. That's it.
Yeah. That's awesome. They did Newt dirty in Alien 3. Just want to say.
Did they? And I'm one of the rare fans of the movie, but only once you get past that extremely awful opening. I like to think of it as a completely different movie, like series of movies even, because it is extremely upsetting. Hicks too. I just can't.
Yeah. I would have loved to have seen the Wood Planet prison concept that they had initially thought of. Like that's a really great idea.
I guess the script is out there. The Neil Gaiman script. I know he's not in a great light of late, but that script, I guess, was the original Alien 3, and I guess it was completely different, and definitely didn't kill off everyone's beloved favorite characters at the beginning. Yeah, I would have loved to have seen what that would have been like.
You can see how this can easily go off track here as we talk.
Yeah,
going back to your earlier like programming days and kind of finding out that you can basically create your own code on PC. Did you ever mess with console stuff as far as like the Game Sharks go and like action replay stuff?
I never got into, I played with them. I had a Game Shark. I think almost everyone kind of did or knew somebody who did. But I never got into the actual manipulation of those. The kind of programming I was learning on my own and this is before the internet, or, I mean, if you wanted to even get a book, it was $100. So, this 13-year-old kid was not getting any of that. That kind of code, the kind of code I could do just didn't apply. It was usually, they used to have this basic game on DOS where it just was like a gorilla that would throw bananas. That was all it was. Just a giant, and over on top of buildings. And it was like
Totally not Donkey Kong.
No, right.
Royalty-free Donkey Kong.
Yeah. And so I would mess around with that, but those are about the limits of the graphics I would get into. And then I started playing games like SimCity and Civilization, and I really got into those. I think partially because I liked the idea of telling like a whole story in a game. Now, the story you tell there isn't like a personal story, but it is a story of like a historical story, this thing that happened throughout time. And so and also because the graphics were pretty simple, and I thought I could probably do those and do the complex strategy side, which is why I always kind of focused on that kind of game. Consoles were always just sort of inaccessible as far as actually publishing, and we can get to that later, but it is still not trivial.
Sure. Yeah, I just asked because that's really the only type of programming that I have ever messed with. And it's one of those things, like when I was younger, I never realized it because Game Sharks are always sold as like a toy. Game Sharks, Game Genies, they're always like a toy, an accessory. And as a kid, I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm putting in these cheat codes that are otherwise not in this game to help me get through it. And then it wasn't until later, I'm just like, oh, I'm actually manipulating the programming of this game to actually get it's actually doing something. And I don't know the technical jargon on what's actually going on with those things, but yeah, it was crazy. So I just wanted to ask if there was any parallels with that at all.
Yeah, I can. One interesting thing about those is that the current speedrunning community, what they do is still essentially the same thing as what people were doing with those, which is finding byte level exploits, 0-day exploits that they could use to change the behavior of the game. There's an excellent example where a guy uses Super Mario World to make Flappy Bird without any actual editing of the code. He just, if you do a certain thing at a certain level and then start jumping, you can actually change the bytecode of the game in memory. I don't know how he figured that out, but he could change the whole game without any external like editing, just playing it. It's crazy stuff, but it's the same idea.
Speedrunners are on a whole other level. It's insane.
I agree.
So you kind of talked about right around when you guys got together, started Newt Industries, you're putting out Garbinge, which is a game that I did have. And you guys took it off of the mobile shops and stuff, right?
Yeah.
It is gone. You cannot get it anymore.
The $100 a year fee to keep our store license open was, at the time that it went off, not justifiable due to our current financial situation. I'll just say this. I just got it running again on my machine. It's going to appear somewhere in the not too distant future, I think.
Was that just a mobile game, or was that a Switch? Did you support that to the Switch?
It was mobile only. At the time, we had never gotten any attention from anyone. We had never sold a copy of anything and never really sold any copies of that. We were, so we thought it's impossible to get it. We knew a few people that worked with consoles and they made it kind of seem like it was never going to happen. So we only tried mobile and were very disappointed, almost to the point of giving up on gaming at all. If we hadn't been going to the conventions where we were hanging out with other developers, we probably would have. But they were very encouraging, and we could see that people that had been where we were did much better eventually. So we stuck with it. But I mean, it's very disheartening when your game is Garbinge, so it's a completely made up word with an exclamation point in the title, and you put that into the Google Play Store, and the game with that exact title isn't even on the first 10 pages. So even if we told people to go look for it, they couldn't find it. It was just crazy. There would be like 30 pages of just spam created garbage truck simulators or whatever. Just nonsense.
I just felt a little crushed inside because I know the Google Play Store backs up all your purchases and stuff like that. And so I was like going back to like 2012, 2011 in my purchases to be like, oh, I can totally still download it. I still bought it. No, it's completely
We're going to make you
gone.
whole. We're going to make you whole on that one. One of the difficult things about the app stores too, and this is Steam and everywhere. Well, not the indie stores, but any of the like mainline stores, is that their requirements for the store page change like every 3 months, and you have to do a non-trivial amount of updating to your like assets and structure and SDKs and a bunch of other stuff that ends up costing you a significant amount of time for no real benefit.
And this kind of leads into something else I want to talk about, and something a community member also brought up. And so I'll just read their question, which is from Lethco. Do you feel indie games are going to be the future of gaming going forward, considering the skyrocketing cost of AAA games for both the devs and consumer as well? He continues to say, I think we are well on our way to within a decade seeing maybe only 5 AAA titles a year, with the rest of the games being smaller indie games or indie-style games from bigger devs to keep them afloat, especially since all it takes is a couple of duds to kill a studio these days. Yeah, what do you think about indie games kind of overtaking that AAA space?
So I think we're already starting to see it. I think a lot of people get bogged down in kind of meta conversations about what's happening, but when you look at just the bottom line numbers that are happening, you're seeing games like Helldivers 2 or what's Expedition 33 or these kinds of small dedicated team games that are crushing multi-year, 1,000 developer, multi-billion-dollar games. And I think the old model is broken. People talk about crunch a lot, and I think here's what I think is happening, and I think this is going to lead into why indie games are going to win more often than not. And it's that, and there's one big exception, and that's Nintendo. But everybody else is that the way that you start when you're a new indie developer is always crunch. You're always crunching because you are 2 or 3 or 5 people that just love it, and that's the only reason you're doing it. There's no hope of ever making money. There's no hope of ever getting big. And what happens is as you get into a real game development company, the people that are designing or running the project maybe have that passion for that game that's theirs. But the crunch attitude, they expect everyone else to continue crunching, even though at this point you're making 500 textures for doors in a new Cyberpunk game. Like there's nothing passionate about what you're doing, really. And so I think you start to detach, you're overworking people and under incentivizing them to care about what they're making. And so you end up with, I don't know. I like a lot of the modern AAA games. They don't hit me the way that even like Mario Brothers 3 would hit me at all. And maybe it's just my age or when it came out, but I just don't. When I play a new game that's huge, I just feel like, yeah, you put everything in it except a reason for like heart, I guess is what I would call it. And you really see it from indie games. It's just, you can see every little bit of craft and polish is a decision made by people who didn't have a lot of time to make a lot of decisions, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it almost seems like the AAA gaming space is, at least from my point of view, and I'm sure a lot of other people share this opinion as well, almost seems like it's copy and paste of some of the biggest trends out there. I just recently talked about the Dark Ages, the latest Doom game, and it has a parry in it. And I remember my guest is like, why is there a parry in it? It's like, well, because games have parries in them now. That's just one of the things a lot of AAA games have to have. And I think that's one of those things that was kind of popularized by a lot of games in the indie space, 6 or 7 years ago.
I think when you are a game developer, you can smell decision by committee on a game, or like corporate leadership decision making it's definitely one of my favorite game reviewers, Tim Rogers. I don't even know if you'd call him a game reviewer at this point. He's a totally different thing. But he was reviewing Cyberpunk 2077, and his bottom line was Cyberpunk 2077 gives you everything. And that he doesn't say that as a necessarily positive thing. He's saying it took every AAA trend that was currently active, and it was all in there. Everything was in there. And at some point, a game has to focus your attention on something that it does that's unique or interesting, or it's going to just fade into the background. Like, speaking of Doom, the first Doom that came out in, what was the newest, like, modern console one? I think it was just called Doom, right? And then they made Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
That first Doom was good. It had a new kind of mechanical feel, like the having to run in and never stop moving, never taking cover, felt really different from a lot of that contemporary action games at the time. And I remember that game because it was a little bit different. It was a little bit not what I expected. But then I played Doom Eternal, and I can't remember one thing about it. I remember I played a lot of it, but I felt like it was just the same. It was the same thing. And also the whole industry had copied all of those elements, and now it had become standard. So yeah, you definitely see it. And there's just so much kitchen sinking with these modern games. Like, do you really need that? I don't want to keep going forever, but there's an example I could give you with Risk System. If you play it, you'll notice that we don't make you hold the fire button. It just shoots.
I appreciated that.
That was a very late design change. And it was based on a philosophy of, like, the only reason we were making you do it is because everyone else had always made you do it. It wasn't because it actually mattered to the gameplay. We finally got to a point where we said, Will Wright from SimCity, Sid Meier from Civilization, they would say things like, if a decision is presented to the player and they always make the same one, remove it. Because it's not a decision anymore. It's just it's a busy work. So yeah, you don't have to hold down the fire button because you're always going to be shooting. Why wouldn't you be?
Mm-hmm. I want to backtrack to, again, like the AAA development cycle versus indie, and a little bit as to what Lethco said, as well as only maybe 5 AAA games coming out in a year. It does seem to feel like a lot of AAA development is outpacing the life cycle of these new consoles. Do you think hardware manufacturing is going to go down? Like, I'm sure we'll see a PS6. Xbox is already kind of leaning into the handheld stuff now, and even talking about, everything is an Xbox. This podcast is an Xbox. It almost seems like it's better just at this point to get a PC.
Yeah, there's something very true to that. I think it's become a perennial joke about, like, Grand Theft Auto. Like, they're developing for a console that's going to be dead by the time they release it. In fact, 2 consoles maybe that are going to be dead by the time they release it. So you're talking about a design cycle that's insane. And I think, there's a lot of elements to what's happening on the development side, but a lot of it is that the whole way that people have been developing in large teams or at large corporations has become increasingly a game of checking boxes and making sure that you have all the right dependencies. People that are in development world will know what I'm talking about more, but you hamstring all your developers and force them into these narrow, extremely work-intensive shoots that are extremely inefficient for any kind of rapid application development. They're safer. They have less likelihood to have a bug long-term. There's a lot of reasons that they do it. The risk-averse people at the top of the corporations like it that way, but it kills productivity and creativity. And you end up with design cycles that are 5-10 times longer than they have to be. And that's why you can see, like, an Expedition 33, I think that's what it's called. I've never played it. I just hear about it. Mm-hmm. But it had 20 developers tops all the way through. And they developed a game that would have probably taken Activision or whoever like 4 years, and they did it in like a third that time. And it's because they don't have to go through all that. They can just work on the game, and that's such an advantage. And I think that the AAA cycle and all of the development world is either going to need to pull away from what they've been doing for the last, I'd say 4 to 7 years, but really the last 4, it's been really bad, and rediscover efficiency before it's too late. Because otherwise, there's a lot of technologies coming up that everyone's talking about that are going to start eating your lunch if you're too slow. And I hope the consoles don't go away. It would be a loss. It really would be. I think Nintendo will be with us forever, or as long as they can. But
yeah,
what is the Xbox if not a PC, essentially? And right. The PlayStation, the most recent one, is also the same thing, pretty much. So the ecosystems are so good historically for the developers, better for the player, even though you really know what you're getting. You know, some people just want to turn on their game.
I feel like that it's kind of inevitable. I don't remember a time before video games. They've always been a part of my life. I've always had consoles in the house. And to see that potentially go the way it seems to be going makes a lot of sense, but also hurts a little bit, you know? There is something nice about just having a box that does one thing. I'm not a huge PC gamer. I use my PC for other things like work, for like this podcast, and other creative endeavors. It's not a gaming machine to me. So while I do play a few games here and there on it, it's nice just to know that the game box is the game box. You know what I mean? It does one thing, and it does it well. I want to shift gears here back to, I guess, when New Industries was kind of starting up. And you talked about the early days of the indie gaming scene, arguably that really started with Xbox Live Arcade. How much easier, and I don't know if you have an answer for this, I don't know if you guys are really developing anything. I don't remember when Garbinge exactly came out, but how much easier is it to get your game in front of an audience now versus when it was, prior to like 2010?
It's such a funny, the answer is going to be a little self-contradicting. It's never been easier to get it on a place where someone might see it. It has never been harder to get noticed by the public broadly. There's a million places you can put your game and someone will see it, but figuring out how to get a significant audience and the right audience is just extremely difficult. We know for sure that a lot of people are doing it. And I'll say this about Xbox. They're the best experience, hands down, at getting, like, our game was on the front page of their store page for like a week when Risk System came out on Xbox. They really take care of their indie developers. Like, they put it on their main, like, social media feeds. They really try to help you out. And you see a huge bump of traffic and everything. But once you start to fall down that list, you're just gone. Steam, you get a bump for almost no time. You try to do wish list stuff and, put out trailers, but to get people to actually, it's just the algorithm is so specific, and we don't hire any SEO engineers that know how to get the top positions. So you end up either paying a lot of money or paying a lot of money, one way or the other. You either pay for advertising or you pay to sponsor a famous YouTuber, or it's been really hard for us. Now, Risk System was kind of a niche game in terms of its genre. It also was a niche in terms of the types of people that love that game genre are very particular about how they think it should work. And so we almost made a mistake by even marketing it as like a shoot 'em up, because the people that are really big into those games, nothing against them, but they're very specific and particular about what they wanted, how they want it to be. And so we'd get a lot of like, that's not really a shoot 'em up for various reasons. And we would say, well, we're just trying to compare it to something because it's a different thing, you know?
Yeah.
But we see people that get amazing word of mouth traffic or social media presence. And I can just say that I feel like it's unlikely that it's entirely organic, is how I would describe it. I think that there is something going on to get them centered for at least long enough to take off, you know?
And this is something we touched on my show last year. I had a panel sit down and we discussed what makes a game of the year. And that inevitably brought up, especially in light of, Jeff Keighley's end of year celebration, in which it's like, well, how many of these people get paid for Jeff Keighley or how many people actually pay Jeff Keighley for him to mention their game, which might surprise some people that happens. I think there's legitimacy to what you're saying here. Do you notice a difference when it comes to like different storefronts, like Steam versus the eShop versus
there's definitely a difference. I have nothing bad to say about Steam or Itch. Steam is wrestling with a very difficult position where they are the main storefront for AAA super titles and indie games, and they have to find this balance. And I think they try really hard to, but ultimately you have to let the game that's selling the most kind of bubble up in your listings. As a business, that's the only sane thing to do. So like, I can't complain about how they run it. It'd be nice to have a little bit more, a better way to get noticed at the top. I mean, we see a game that comes out that because a YouTuber has played it or who knows what other reason, have 1 million reviews on their game. And we could not have tried harder to get people to review, and it's still dozens is all we can get without selling millions of copies, which I don't know how you do. Itch is completely egalitarian. They, I think, don't play favorites at all. I think that their overall model is good. They're very great for people that are just messing around or really getting into it. We definitely put Risk System on there. We love philosophically the idea of completely DRM free gaming. We also learned why a lot of people that make video games are not huge fans of it. You do lose a lot of money. Maybe you would never have sold it to that person anyway. Probably wouldn't have. I'm not saying that you really lost money, but potentially theoretically lost some money. They also just don't have the kind of infrastructure that allows, and I haven't really updated there for a while, but they just didn't have the kind of support that like Steam has. And then when you get up to the console level, it's a different ball game entirely. Those guys do the QA for you. So they have teams that review your game and find bugs for you and document them and help you fix them. So, like once you get into those stores, you really get like a very like white glove, top tier experience, that both Steam and Itch don't do. Like Steam doesn't really review your game before it puts it anywhere. And Itch doesn't at all. So I think that then as from the consumer's perspective, I want a game that's going to work right now out of the box. The console is obviously the best place to go because that's going to just work. And then Steam's probably second. And then Itch, you never know what you're going to get. But we really like them and have enjoyed working with them. They're just very nice folks to work with over at Itch.
I want this to kind of segue into Bangle and Maggie because we're starting to run short on time here. With Bangle and Maggie coming out, you guys still developing it currently. What kind of, I guess, lessons are you learning from the storefront and trying to get new games out there? Are you considering any type of like early access? Are you doing a Kickstarter, Patreon? any type of more like community or social aspects to the new release?
So we are going to do quite a bit more, and we have a little bit of a war chest going into this one because we did make enough profit on a risk system to like do something, maybe go to some conventions. And we're going to try and go to bigger conventions. We find that foot traffic, people that see it as they're walking by immediately want to know more about it. And then we're going to have an anime trailer, I think, pretty sure. Don't quote me on that because I'm not the one making it. So it depends on what other Chris is doing. He's making a comic book for it.
Oh, wow.
And then we're going to try to get everywhere we can. And we're already starting to see a lot more traction. Part of the reason that we think that we're going to have more traction is that we picked a genre of game that is a lot easier to sell than Risk System or Garbinge. Garbinge was impossible to sell. It was hard to even describe what it was. It's fun when you play it, but it's hard to explain it. The world's premier raccoon-themed garbage sorting game. But Risk System was a little bit easier to describe, but also because it was genre-defying in many ways, in a very particular set of genre enjoyers, that was tricky. So with Bangle Maggie, we started with a game, and this was intentional, that we thought we could sell more easily, describe more easily, explain. It started as an RPG, actually, which is why it's so story heavy. And then as we developed it, we just kind of settled back into a beat 'em up, which is super accessible anyway. And then, and also just more mechanically pure, which is kind of off topic.
No, that's perfect. I was just going to say, so you're also going to get into a very specific genre where people are very snobby about it.
It is. But it's also easier to conform to the expectations of a beat 'em up, specifically because I think also one of the things that I hear a lot from beat 'em up enjoyers is that they do want something a little different. They do want a little bit of a mechanic. Like a bullet hell person just wants a bullet hell. They want to have no inertia and move exactly where they want to, not get hit. But like beat 'em up people want to like kind of flow through the game. They actually want to like kind of let loose a little bit. It's not as speed run-y mechanical. But yes, beat 'em up fans can also be a little particular.
That's a nicer way of putting it than I did calling them snobby, but anyway.
We are trying to market to them currently, so we love you guys.
My bad. Earlier you mentioned that what the main mechanic of Risk System, well, I guess it's not the main mechanic, but kind of a secondary mechanic where it just auto fires for you, was like a last minute addition. Is there anything about Bangle and Maggie that's like currently on the cutting room floor that you really want to implement, or is there something that you did want to implement that you had to take out for balancing issues?
Initially, we had thought of the game as a kind of Mega Man 2 kind of game where there's like 8 different paths and you can pick any of those 8 to start. And then at each one of them, you get some power up that changes the whole way that the mechanics work. We've mostly abandoned that for the main reason that we didn't find implementing and balancing the mechanics we already have is quite difficult for 2 people. But then also it didn't add a lot to the actual gameplay flow. The game loop stayed essentially the same. And like the actual mechanisms that you use to maneuver, because again, like Risk System, we really want this game to feel like it has a lot of like, we like inertia and momentum. We want it to feel like a real fight where like you can get off balance or overcommit, make the wrong decision and really pay for it. So if you played Risk System, you realized, and we realized late, the main mechanic was movement. That's all that the game is really about. Yes, you're shooting and blowing stuff up and you got to use your breaker when you need it. But really, we loved the feeling of just flying around, jumping around. And I'm not good at it. But I did get the feeling of ooh, wow, what a cool move I just did to get through there. And you should see some of the stuff the speedrunners did.
I played Risk System the same day this drops. My written review on it will be coming out. Yeah, it's really rewarding when you see a gap and you fly right through it and you make it. And now you're barrier breaker. The meter's completely full. And you can just unleash on the entire screen. It's really rewarding. It's cool.
Yeah, we yearn for the term satisfying to come out of the people who are playing its mouths. That's what we want to hear. That was really satisfying. That felt good. We spent, I would say, months with just the RSK-9, which is the ship and risk system, and no enemies, just moving, just getting that move to feel good. It was like the key to everything. And we did the same thing with Bangle and Maggie. So the way that Bangle and Maggie's mechanics work, all of the movement can lead into another movement, and that creates combos, basically. They're not like counted. Like, you're not going to hear like, ultra combo, and like there's no combo breaker or whatever other than just getting hit, obviously. But when we watch people play it, we can see them building their own combos and really like nodding. Yeah, cool. So we have cut a lot. We started as an RPG. The original idea was we wanted you to be able to control 2 or 3 characters at one time in an RPG, like an action RPG kind of. We ended up sort of that. So you've got Bangle, who's the barbarian, and Maggie, who's the little spirit floating behind her. And they're the 2 characters you control at the same time using the same controls. So we did keep that, but we ditched most of the like level up stuff, mostly because it's a time constraint and it wasn't an overwhelming, compelling addition to the gameplay to us. Not to say that there might not ever be something, but we have more than enough to do.
And so do you guys have a release date set for this yet?
So at the Midwest Gaming Classic, we showed it to a few hundred people that played it, and everyone got it. The things that we looked for were all there. Kids picking it up and just getting it. Adults picking it up and just getting it. We just wanted it to feel natural. So we see all these things, and that makes us think, all right, the gameplay's good. We've got it where we need it as far as how it feels to play. So now all we need to do, which is in big, bold, funny letters, Comic Sans, all we need to do is build out all the levels and all the other enemies and all of the maps, which sounds like the biggest part, but is really more, I would describe it as work, but not necessarily hard. It's just time consuming, got to get it right. But so we think early next year is our launch date for it.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, we hope to have it almost for release by next Midwest Gaming Classic, and that whole season of conventions is probably going to be just running around trying to sell it.
Hell yeah. Looking forward to it, man. Before we get out of here, and I ask this to all of my guests, and I'm going to carry it over to this format of show, I have to ask you, what is your favorite game of all time?
So I saw this question on the heads up, the idea. I saw that you've asked this question of other people. It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. If you really love video games, you have a few. Yeah. I'm going to go with the one that just consumed me more than any other, and that's going to be Final Fantasy America 3, actually 6. It's the most I've ever cared about a game. It's definitely the most I ever played a game. I love that game. I love everything about it. All the characters, all the art, the music, the story. It's just perfect to me. I still, when I sit down to play it, enjoy it. Love it. Other notable runners-up would be Legend of Zelda, Link to the Past, original Legend of Zelda. Those are huge for me. Huge.
Is a little bit of Final Fantasy VI going to leak into Bangle and Maggie?
Definitely. Certainly in the storyline of it. Definitely. We both love it. I think I like that one a little more, but he was more of a Sega guy.
Okay.
I think you can see it in the art style for sure. The Neo Geo sort of style, or the Sega Genesis.
God, yeah.
Pixel art.
Looks great, though.
I mean, just the very fact that we wanted to make an RPG in the first place is anchored in me at a Kmart looking through a glass pane at the back of Final Fantasy 1, on a Nintendo cartridge, just wishing I had it, yearning to own that game, which was a lot less enjoyable than 2 and 3/4 and 6.
Arguably a very broken game.
Final Fantasy 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have described it as a 10-year-old as, quote, impossible to beat, unquote, would have been my description of the last piece of the game. Did a lot right, though. Did a lot right.
Yeah. Obviously, 52 sequels and spin-offs and stuff later.
Yeah. The formula was there for sure.
That's basically all I have for you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to, and I'm sure this could have been like a 2-hour conversation.
I'm a talker.
I really appreciate you taking the time out and chatting with me, man. At this point, is there anything you would like to plug or let my listeners know where they can find Newt Industries and where maybe they can get a hold of a game such as Risk System?
We have a YouTube channel under Newt Industries. If you look up Risk System, the name is super not Googleable, so you're going to want to put that in quotes and add game to the end. It turns out it's also a principle of insurance. So, whoops. Another thing we learned. But we're on Switch. We're on every console. So PS4, 5, Xbox, Switch. We have a physical copy available on Amazon or from VGNY, which is a boutique shop in New York, which you can look up on their website. VGNY is easy to find as opposed to our stuff. And then look for Bangle Maggie trailers and perhaps a demo coming out in the next few months. And then Garbinge is coming back. I guarantee it. And probably sooner than people think.
Yeah, and of course, I'll leave a couple links in the show notes as well. I didn't get to talk about Chris's fantastic artwork. I mean, even just the Risk System trailer is amazing. It's so good. So I can't wait to see what he does with Bangle and Maggie.
I highly recommend that as just a thing of art to look at. It's beautiful.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you go. And hey, thanks again for coming on and talking.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thank you once again for listening to another episode of Quest Givers. If you like what you heard, make sure to follow the Main Quest podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you would like to further support the program and get early access to episodes, written content, and a lot more, join the Patreon at patreon.com/mainquestpod. And if you would like to contribute to the podcast and ask questions for future guests, hop into the Main Quest Discord.